Chapter 22. Red Flags in a Bright White Gown. Lost at sea, far in over my head, drowning in murky waters. Sadly, no one was around to pull me to the surface and resuscitate me with a reality check. My Mormon dream was to grow up, marry, have babies, nurture a family, and live on planet Kolob for all eternity. Yet how would I even be capable of nurturing a family when I hadn't learned to love myself? A week before the turn of the year 1977, I moved away from Chad, the only man I truly loved, into a mixed-gender apartment complex a mile down the street. Housed right across the terrace from a bevy of eligible bachelors, how could I not succeed in finding my special someone? A day after I settled in, I was walking to the mailbox and silently pleading with God to find me a husband. Suddenly, I heard the Holy Ghost quote Proverbs 3:5-6.
Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and he shall direct thy paths.
Immediately I felt at peace and knew something exciting would happen soon. The next day, I discovered a promotional flyer peeking out from beneath our flimsy AstroTurf doormat, announcing an upcoming campus dance. In my childlike faith, I was convinced this was a sign from on high. Yep. The upcoming event would present me with my Cinderella moment. The chance to meet my hubby was right around the corner. I was thrown off guard when I ended up catching the flu on the day of the dance. Yet a queasy tummy wasn't going to get in the way of a chance for romance. On that cold January night in 1977, a week after Jimmy Carter was sworn in as the 39th president, I met Gary. Soon after we met, I learned we lived right across the terrace from each other. I saw it as no coincidence. This had to be divine intervention. Warning, be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it, especially if you beg. I think God was tired of hearing me whine, so he gave me a bait and switch, gracing me with my hardest lesson yet, and said, "Good luck." At first, Gary seemed to be everything I hoped for. Well, almost. He was a little on the controlling side, but what the heck, no one's perfect. Tall, reedy, and fair-skinned, his thick white blonde waves rose and dipped. The whole look was effeminate, yet I was proud of my ability to look past it and see that he had a deep, abiding love for the gospel. What more could I want? He and I saw each other almost every day after that. 19 days later, we were engaged. Gary told me the Holy Ghost told him I was the one. Who was I to argue with the Holy Ghost? In fact, a few weeks prior, the Spirit had already assured me on my way to the mailbox that the Lord would take care of me. Because I trusted the Spirit, I felt certain that Gary's spiritual experience was real. I almost couldn't contain myself when he proposed. I jubilantly danced around the apartment shouting, "Hey world, Jennifer is getting married!" About a week after our engagement, up popped the red flags. One afternoon, my fiancé and I were sitting out on my backyard patio having a leisurely conversation when all at once he accused me of saying something I didn't say. Because it was so long ago, I don't remember the exact details of the conversation, but I recall feeling misjudged. When trying to defend myself, this new man in my life artfully twisted my words, using my own logic and reasoning to lead me to a place of self-doubt. He had me convinced that I said something that I had not said. A carefully created, masterfully planned delusion to keep me enslaved and compliant. He was quite brilliant in his manipulations. But because I wanted a husband more than anything, I ignored that little voice in my head that whispered, "Break up with him or you'll be sorry." What if I turned him down and never got an offer to marry again? After all, marriage was the most important goal for any young LDS woman. Besides, the Holy Ghost told Gary to marry me. Who am I to question a priesthood holder? He was also a biology major with a goal to become a dentist. Why would I want to flub that up? Gary was also a returned missionary. A missionary was considered a great catch. At age 18, young LDS men are expected to go out into the world and preach the gospel for 2 years, then find a wife shortly after they return home. We had a holy reason to want to rush into marriage, but we had to wait 4 grueling months to finish up the semester before meeting each other's families. 4 months was an eternity for 2 obedient, overeager virgins like us. And with my over-the-top libido, it felt as though that day would never come. My fiancé had the physique of a bobby pin, and standing next to him made me feel like a house. But I convinced myself that a girl can't have everything. When there's love, there's sacrifices. That's just the way it was. Besides, I had a sparkling diamond on my finger. On May 14th, 1977, this practical stranger dressed in a white ruffled shirt and baby blue tux, accented with a pink boutonniere, took me by the hand as we entered the Oakland Temple gates. Anything but elaborate, our wedding day was a simple, sacred ceremony. In about a 14 by 12-foot seating room, we knelt across from each other on a cushioned altar. Alabaster walls, gold-framed mirrors, and a 4-tiered chandelier transformed this tiny room into an illusion of heavenly glory. But something was missing. Was it joy? Circled by family and close friends, everyone whispered. I wore a pure white, floor-length, long-sleeved, high-necked dress with a pleated white nylon robe over one shoulder, a white veil over my head, and a small green apron tied around my waist. Gary was dressed all in white, wearing what looked like a baker's hat and the same kind of apron. My prince and I ogled each other hungrily, ready and eager to participate in the physical act of creating a celestial family. After all, we had earned our place there. Standing in front of the altar was a white-clad officiant who we had never met until that day. He shared a barely audible, prosaic message which my wandering mind neglected to take in. I just wanted to skip all the quiet and get on with the honeymoon. After this stranger pronounced us husband and wife, and we exchanged a chaste kiss, he led us to a stand between 2 mirrors that faced each other. Smiling at each other in endless reflections, my new spouse and I vowed to live up to our temple covenants. In return, we were promised that death would not divide us. As a young girl filled with hopes and dreams, I was completely clueless about the rotten deal I had made. As our guests pulled out their tissues and quietly dabbed their eyes, exuberant laughter was squelched. Family and friends' gestures of congrats were rigid and suppressed. A marriage event that would have otherwise been filled with so much rejoicing turned out to be a disappointing, sterile experience. After the ceremony, we headed to the Hayward Meeting House for our wedding reception. There was no lively dancing, no garter or bouquet toss, or loud, hearty guffaws. It was more like a family birthday party as lovely ward members pitched in to decorate and provide music. Held in the church's multi-purpose room with basketball hoops and gym floor, the Carpenters and Bread hummed in the background on a 70s portable cassette player, lulling our guests with their mellow tunes. Tacky pink and white crepe paper zigzagged around the basketball hoops and stands. But a basketball court will always be a basketball court, no matter how hard you try to disguise it. Refreshments consisted of a modest 3-tier vanilla cake, but let's not forget the candy-coated almonds. Hungry kids popped them like hopheads since dinner was not offered. Guests paid their respects by shaking hands systematically down the reception line as their children ran loose, screeching their Sunday shoes across the freshly waxed gymnasium floor. Would I find eternal bliss in this new chapter of my life? If bliss was to be determined by the events that played out so far, I didn't have a chance. Time was drawing near. We would soon be heading toward the San Francisco Hyatt Regency to spend our first night together. Would it be everything I imagined it to be? A million scenarios flashed through my mind as we whisked our way through scattered rice. Yet the sound of silence drummed even louder as our little Datsun B210 rumbled across the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge toward the city's hotel. Why was my new husband so quiet? Was he holding on to a secret? Was there something he wasn't telling me?